Morning, folks. Everything new under the sun. Well, I want to take a look at this article about DC officials flocking to doomsday bunkers and camps. Now, BP Earthwatch did a video on this. I saw it last night. I'm not going to cover the whole video. He had some interesting things to say. What I want to do is take a look at the scriptures and see, does the Bible speak about heading into bunkers or fleeing, or what will happen in the last days as it relates maybe to bunkers. We're going to take a look at that in a second. Well, Washington, D.C. government officials are flocking to doomsday camps around the country, which of course begs the question, what do they know that we do not? Now, this is a recent article. It would suggest, however, that this sort of article seems to come out once every 6 months or something. So it's really hard to understand where they're getting this information. Maybe this is just a general trend in DC officials, paying for bunkers, getting ready for what is inevitable, really. And there seems to be an increase in bunker sales. It's big in Israel, for example, where they're custom making bunkers left, right, and center. It's a booming industry. So maybe it's just a general move towards building bunkers and leasing spots and rooms in bunkers. People are making this Fortitude Ranch, for example, requires a membership, and they basically make you pay $1,000 a year, and you reserve a spot, I guess, on the ranch, and for times of violence in the country or nuclear war or something like that. Well, it goes on to say, according to the Washington Examiner, a building network of backwoods doomsday camps around the country are pulling in members from affluent areas and even Washington national security officials as threats grow from nuclear war, an EMP, or a virus attack. Dubbed Fortitude Ranch, the outpost promised protection and a year's supply of food. So this is a big market, if you will, people getting ready. I don't think there's any evidence that they're actually staying there right now, i.e. that anything is absolutely imminent. It goes on, what's more, until a crisis strikes, the doomsday camps are being used for prepper training and vacations. So that's the big draw right now, prepper training and vacations, interestingly. Well, and they're expecting people to come because people are waking up to the potential of a national attack, financial meltdown, and political violence. For most of us, it says, something rattled our cages and woke us up. The person said, we're seeing members from all the three-letter agencies, so all the CIA, FBI, these big three-letter security agencies in the U.S., and I guess the assumption is that they know something that we don't know. There's information going around, and absolutely, if you look at the Bible, I think every lay person, every non-intelligence person, who doesn't work for one of these three-letter agencies, if they're reading their Bible, they know they have a good indication of what could be coming down the pipe. I think it's going to be financial collapse. I think that's ultimately going to be the big thing, but maybe it's going to be triggered from a nuclear detonation in the U.S., and that's very possible. Side note, you should look into getting iodine pills. Iodine pills are relatively cheap, and they are the one prevention against a nuclear disaster, to prevent some of the initial effects of a nuclear explosion. So Google iodine pills. I know in Ontario, around I think it's the Darlington nuclear power station, they actually provide free iodine pills for a certain radius. The government does, I believe, that you can collect. Check that out if you're in Ontario or around another nuclear power station. Inquire of them if you can get free iodine pills or iodine medication. In the event of a nuclear disaster, taking iodine pills right away will really limit the destructive power of radiation in the air and such. What it does is, I believe the iodine goes into your liver and prevents radiation from getting stuck in your liver, something like that. I'd have to go read up on it, but check out iodine pills. It's a relatively easy prepper thing to do to get ready for a nuclear disaster. You can't really prevent destruction from a direct blast, etc. The only thing you can really prevent against is the after effect, the radiation that comes down, and you can get that through radiation pills. Well, through this place is run by memberships. No longer needing government for anything, preppers can survive most scenarios that will leave many others begging for their slavery again, it says, and in return for government to give them abject poverty in exchange. You'd have to be an idiot not to think it will happen, said Miller, author of Rohan Nation, Reinventing America After the 2020 Collapse. So he's apparently this book is suggesting there's going to be a 2020 collapse of America. And the Bible seems to indicate that the U.S. will collapse. One person suggested that even Ezekiel 38 says that the U.S. is going to collapse according to that war where they go in with Israel against Gog Magog, and they actually are destroyed or affected so much so that they're not a world-leading superpower. They're taken out of the prophetic picture at that point in time. I'll put the link in the description to this Fortitude Ranch, but what I want to look at is, what does the Bible say about bunkers or fleeing to the hills in a disastrous scenario? Well, there's a couple passages. Matthew, for example. Let's take a look at Matthew, where it's speaking of the abomination of desolation. Matthew 24, verse 15. When you therefore see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet stand in the holy place, whoso readeth, let him understand. Let them which be in Judea flee into the mountains. So into the mountains. You could read that as being, get into your bunkers, get out of there. Let him which is on the housetop not come down to take anything out of the house, neither let him which is in the field return back to take his clothes. So this is specifically talking about being in Jerusalem around the time of the abomination of desolation. You want to get out of there. It says, but pray ye that your flight may not be in winter, neither on the Sabbath day, for there shall be great tribulation, such as was not since the beginning of the world, nor shall ever be. And except those days be shortened, there should no flesh be saved. So this is specifically talking about, this is where the Bible speaks about fleeing into the mountains, into the, maybe around the mountains, but you could read into, if you want to take it literally, go into the mountains, into the caves. There's another time which speaks of man fleeing into the caves and actually asking rocks to fall on them because the tribulation of those days is so great. And that's in Luke 23. This is one example here. Let's see. This is speaking of the crucifixion, but it's going to speak of a time in the future when God is talking about, when Jesus is talking about the future here. It says, but Jesus turning unto them said, daughters of Jerusalem, weep not for me, but weep for yourselves and for your children. For behold, the days are coming, the future events, the end times, in which they will say, blessed are the barren and the wombs that never bare, and the paps which never gave suck. Then shall they begin to say to the mountains, fall on us, mountains, and to the hills, cover us, bunkers, you can think of bunkers here, fall on us. For if they do these things in a green tree, what shall be done in the dry? So in the time of tribulation, when things are really bad on the earth, people will be heading to bunkers, heading into the mountains. But at that time, they're not going to be asking for to be saved anymore. They're actually calling on the mountains to kill them, basically, because they can see the wrath of God raining down on them, and they want protection. They just want to die at this point. They don't want to endure the wrath of God at this point. So interesting passages, which I thought, kind of reflected people heading into bunkers in the last days. And in these cases, it's because of the wrath of God is falling upon them, and they're fleeing to the hills, into the mountains, into the bunkers. And in fact, they're not going there to be saved. They want the bunkers, to collapse around them, effectively, their mountains and the rocks to fall on them, so that they don't have to withstand or attempt to withstand the wrath of God. And they're going to be so scared. If they would just turn their hearts to Jesus Christ, they wouldn't have to be worried about these things. And you too don't have to be worried about these things. You can ask Jesus Christ into your heart today, and he will come and save you. He died 2,000 years ago for my sin and for your sin. And he's coming again very, very shortly. I think 2020 is, that could be accurate. I think the 7-year tribulation starts in a couple of years here. So that could be very, very accurate as it relates to the collapse of the United States. So thanks for watching, guys. I'll leave it there. I'll see you guys in the next video.